what are you going to do different? How are you going to communicate that onward? How are you going to change the workflow? How are you going to improve the ultimate customer experience? And how are you going to measure it? All too often, I've sat through so many board meetings and executive staff meetings where numbers are being presented. The sales are up, the sales are down. The marketing numbers are up here and they're down here. Everyone sits back, goes, good job, nice presentation.
How seriously it's seen? Because does it leave any impact after the surveys are received?
My experience, both in terms of completing the surveys, as well as then reviewing the survey data. Problem one, survey is not frequent enough and too long.
Do you agree with the education gap between the top leaders deciding on technology or investments to make and then the implementation of the technology at a lower level? What is the education gap top leaders have?
I think what we were saying earlier about, you can easily go into ChatGPT or Claude or Lovable or any of the other tools and you can play all day long. What is urgent versus important, which is nice to have.
He's managed the data plumbing and storage infrastructure for the Fortune 100 at tech giants like Hitachi, Western Digital, and EMC. Known in the boardroom as a rare species, he's an executive advisor who seamlessly translates deep engineering complexity into massive corporate revenue. Currently focused on transforming legacy storage into high-velocity AI machinery. Please welcome the architect of the 5 A's framework for budget mastery, Gary Lyng. Gary, what your thought about investments on the AI side? Companies are investing billions of dollars. The economy is in crunch right now for AI buzzword. Is it a bubble? Is it gonna get us somewhere? Where companies are moving? How investments should be made so it's beyond pilot purgatory, and at least businesses should look value in the productivity of AI. Most companies are stuck in experiments. What you take about it?
It's a good question because, if you're listening to, Fox News in the morning, the financial updates, people are suddenly always talking about, is the bubble going to burst? And, there's the stock predictions up and down, and people suddenly listen to that. I think the evidence is being demonstrated through companies that are improving their bottom line through implementation, or rather the augmentation of AI into their practices. Many years ago, there were, time and materials people coming in with their little boards, checking at the productivity of people, I would say in the olden days. But it's a way of sort of looking at how can AI improve either your processes, your productivity, building efficiencies. That's an area where you can invest to actually decrease costs, but at the same time improving the efficiencies, improving productivity, gaining a competitive advantage over and above others because you're doing things so much faster. So many things take manual intervention or manual work or high expense of applications to be integrated. Well, now you can actually go in and, as long as things are connected, be able to ask AI through your favorite tool, a very vague question. And it's going to pull a lot of data sources and give you an intelligent response. The NLP or natural language processing interface into things are the right way for a human to do things. Just the other day, I noticed on my car, the screen, the ChatGPT logo is there, and it was through Apple CarPlay, and I just tapped on it, and certainly ChatGPT was listening. So I was literally having a conversation in my car with ChatGPT and having basically a conversation backwards and forwards. And then at the end, I said, well, now summarize this into a table and give me, a breakdown of this. But I didn't have to sort of sit there and write and think about it. I was driving and having a conversation. And that was actually quite illuminating to me. That just happened the other week. So quite fascinating there. Your real question is kind of how people are sort of using AI.
Yeah, how to convert that investment into a profitable operating model?
Yeah, I think, one is you need to look at sort of the timeline. And I actually made some notes. I was on a call the other day with somebody, and it's a matter of a phased approach where, so you need to sort of, if from a marketing perspective, map out the roles and the time that you're spending on things, and then look at, where is the draining of an individual's effort. Yes, meetings we can't always get out of, but certainly things like Microsoft Teams meetings where now there's note taking, it's summarizing all of the actions and who said what, and then the follow-up. However, you still need the discipline. So the next meeting you have is, what did we say last time? Did were the actions taken care of? Then, so in this sort of process that this gentleman shared, it is prioritizing, because again, as you said, AI can be a shiny new toy. I can spend all day playing with things, discovering things through newsletters that are actually improving things. And then the next thing is like, look at that time and cost it out. What are the things we're going to save on doing? You can actually look at that. Am I saving 20% of my time each day or each week by not having to do X, by automating it through AI? For example, if I'm doing a competitive summary, I know some of the information in my head. I've got information come from different sources. I can actually put those through. What's the most amount of my time, or a product marketing person's time spent? It's on formatting the document and get, improving the English as an example, laying it out correctly, whether they do it in PowerPoint or Word or some other application. But they're spending time on production, which is a waste of time. They're intelligent about their product. They're intelligent about the market. So why waste time formatting and so forth, and using AI to do that for you is going to save an immense amount of time.
There is a reference I heard in a conversation with somebody the other day. JP Morgan Chase CEO once made a mandate that done an assessment, the company-wide assessment, to improve productivity on not so interesting tasks. So they listed all of their processes and tasks that are no more interested. Okay, they still needed to be done for business, but there are no more cool factor behind those processes. So they started automating all of those.
Yeah.
So humans can really focus on interesting tasks so they can be more productive. It's a really big shift, good change. Yeah, it has to be decided.
I look at something like Grammarly, but again, Grammarly, starts helping improve your grammar in real time. So it's correcting things and so forth. Or you can just write something and then run it through Grammarly. But the live interaction, so this improves quality, improves productivity, readability, but also the credibility of you, because actually someone was watching over your shoulder and helping you write things. So there's more and more of these things that are augmenting our behavior. We've seen it with the iPhone, for example. Now when you look on my phone here, I'm writing an email, I can just press the little button at the top and it will rewrite the email for me. However, trust but verify. I made the mistake of writing something that I thought sounded okay, pressed the button, gave it a brief review, and sent it. Mistake was fact because it was delivered in the wrong context, as if I'd already met somebody, when in actuality, I was saying, I'm pleased to meet you. So trust but verify is going to be key. That comes down to human interaction, human discipline, and again, how we train ourselves. As we train AI, we need to train ourselves to do things differently and to focus on, again, quality and keeping that interaction. They're the things I think we all need to be cognizant of. Otherwise, we're going to be, AI talking to AI and the humans just get in the way. I think that the thing, though, when I look at, AI tools, and again, AI is a capability that's creating new tools or augmenting tools and applications and the interactions of humans. First off, from an investment perspective, the timeline about using it and augmenting environment is going to help you reduce cost in the short term and in the long term. That's kind of, I would say, step one. You're going to improve the efficiency. Great. You're going to get new advantages because time to market, time to value, time to insight. But you're going to be able to do things so much faster, or rather, we already are doing things so much faster. As opposed to someone saying, "Oh, I need a presentation on X and Y," and thinking about it and writing some things down. At the last minute, you could just throw through a couple of the AI tools and output a good quality presentation that you're going to want to tweak, but at the same time, you're not wasting time as a thought leader or a marketing leader or a CFO formatting documents for presentation, because you're letting that so-called grunt work be done by AI. You're always going to want to have your touch, your creative side. And that brings us back down to left brain, right brain. We get enough creative juices whilst, feeding the models. It's a brave new world, as they say. But fun. It's fun learning.
Do you agree with the education gap between the top leaders deciding on technology or investments to make, and then the implementation of the technology at a lower level? Like, what is the education gap top leaders have? How do you agree?
I think what we were saying earlier about, you can easily go into ChatGPT or Claude or Lovable or any of the other tools, and you can play all day long. I think the key thing is to look at what is urgent versus important, which is nice to have. I'll give you an example. My own productivity, we all get so many emails and information. So I just went into Claude the other day and I said, I want an agent that basically pulls from these 8 sources of information I get on a daily basis, summarize it back to me, get, at the end of each section, give me the key talking points. And then at the end of the document, give me a whole summary of relevancy that I should remember. So all I have to do in the morning is to just say, give me my brief. And it's going through all of this and giving me a good, concise document or text that I can read and digest. So these are the kind of things that certainly help. I think when you look at ERP, CRM, these things that are the backbone of many major enterprises, the vendors that supply those, Salesforce, Oracle, and others, they're already fast moving and have already rolled out a lot of adjustments to their core applications. It's interesting how the stock market has actually penalized a lot of so-called software companies because of the view of AI is just going to replace it. No, you need to have guardrails. You need to have controls. You need to ensure one of the most important things, which is workflow, the input, output of information and the interaction of the information and how decisions are made. Again, big warning signs: trust but verify, use it as a tool, use it to receive information. But again, back down to what we've talked about before, data quality. The old saying, garbage in, garbage out, or as we say in English, rubbish in, rubbish out. We've got to look at that and be very, very careful. And I'm sure someone will come up with an AI tool to help us trust but verify. It's fascinating. I don't think you asked earlier about, are we in a bubble and is that bubble going to burst? This is unlike any other revolution. The internet came along, great. We had suddenly websites with Mozilla and all of and Netscape and so forth. Fun times. Suddenly information was accessible to everybody. If I go back centuries, there were only a few people that could actually read. And so they had to listen to philosophers and religious leaders because they could read. Now, eventually people through education, as you brought up earlier, people can read. They can digest for themselves. Now people can find information for themselves on the internet. And obviously AI is going to help them do that. I think a selfish view, my personal view really is looking at, how do I use my time? Because there's so much you can do, so much information coming in. How do I prioritize my tasks? How do I prioritize that?
How to go beyond the experimentation phase. Like human AI collaboration at individual level is great. I mean, everyone is pretty much familiar on all use cases, like for co-creation and planning and building and content creation. Where do you see that the challenge right now is on the business side, and how can that be sorted out?
It depends on every single business itself, and how can, you augment to improve or fix a problem. Not improve a problem, but, fix a particular issue, or improve on a particular inefficiency. Um, I saw a thing on the news just the other day. I think it was Channel 2's local here in the Bay Area, where someone was being interviewed, and it was for construction in houses. And the facts, and I'll probably get this wrong, but the facts that this gentleman was actually sharing was the amount of waste in materials as they look as, construction workers and people building houses are actually looking at blueprints. I'm not a construction guy by any means. My wife will tell you that. But, if you're cutting off a, 2x6 or 2x4 and there's wasted because, they didn't read the blueprint correctly, or the design was inefficient. And so this gentleman was talking about his company that is using AI to not only analyze, blueprints efficiently in the building, but also forecasting of materials, to have the right map materials to reduce waste. So that's going to obviously have a trickle effect, both economically on the cost of the building, but even on something as sustainability, cutting down less trees because I'm using less wood, but also can improve margins, improve productivity of those workers. Your buildings go up quicker. So again, these are kind of these trickle down effects that can really help it. So again, no one would say immediately AI, it's good for construction workers. People would scratch their head and go, what are you talking about? But this was quite illuminating because it's actually breaking down the whole problem, that end-to-end business of constructing homes. Right? And when you're looking at the enterprise, the major corporations, what is their core business? Where can efficiencies be improved? How do they, look at adjuncts or new businesses as derivatives or connected to their core business? I need right now, we've all got to learn every single day. We've got to spend time to keep track of what are the possibilities. We've already seen it. Every week or every month, there are new versions of the models coming out from ChatGPT and new releases that can now do even greater imagery or do greater analysis. It's almost that, continuous cognition, cognitive learning, and we need to keep up. Or rather than keeping up, understanding and harnessing, and using applicability to that. So
You're right. Even if it is like construction business, it's all about operations, and improving on operations with AI is a big help at this point. I mean, a human is taking advantage. There is also a conflict with like brand consistency and using AI a lot. You might have seen a story lately, like a law firm got screwed up. They were just reading petitions, like hundreds of petitions using AI, and then the Supreme Court, I think, they penalized that law firm, and they kind of cancel their license or something like that. So it is all about, and they the law firm actually acknowledged like they screwed up with AI because they were not reviewing it correctly.
yeah, I think it's more of an evolution. Honestly, just a personal point of view. A human has to, in this case, this example, needs to go through a lot of schooling and learning that's been handed down over the years, from, scholars that have been involved in, cases, new legislation being created, new laws, and it's a continuous thing that they've got to learn. I would say nigh impossible for a human to understand everything. That's why you have law specialists in particular areas of law. But if you look at AI, as it improves, we will eventually get to AI singularity. AI singularity meaning when, AI is more intelligent than the human. So maybe a forward thought is, has this been verified by AI or has this been verified by human? These are a dilemma. People need to trust. And it does come back down to trust. Do I trust in the LLM, the model, the AI results? And is it proven statistically that it's more accurate? Again, I think that case that you bring up 10 years from now, they may not be um, being told off or license revoked. They'll actually be complimented for utilizing certain tools that the checks and balances have been gone through. But again, this is a debatable topic. We don't know.
But we also should talk about like brand consistency with this, because this is one law firm. They are facing some challenges right now with their own branding and consistency internally, but it also influences like customer perception about AI, and whatever businesses are using AI, customers might get confused of, and they may not be involved correctly in their processes right now because of this technology. Although everyone understands the value of it, there is no question about it, right? Like how fast businesses want to scale and how much risk they are playing to compromise your brand consistency. Where do you see how can like companies think about find the right balance, like playing calculated risk with the brand and AI implementation?
I think at the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know. Um, in terms of process and implementation, I think we need a crawl, walk, run. And that crawl, walk, run is a timeline based on the people, the process, and the environment that are and all the programs that they're actually running. So we really need to, again, there's no one size fits all here. It's exciting, but also be cautious. Don't let it be a runaway train. The time of implementation has dramatically decreased. It used to be someone comes out with a great new software program. Oh, beautiful, great. Let's go get it up and running. Okay, we're going to get the servers to support it. We're going to get the networking. We're going to get the software. We'll get people trained up. Well, that all changed when software as a service first landed. In a lot of cases, landed by people like Salesforce, or Salesforce.com. And where you didn't have to get anything up and running. Along comes Microsoft Azure and AWS and Google Cloud. And again, now applications are being rapidly deployed in these environments. Now, that's not to say that everything is in the cloud. Some people believe that. Again, the human factor. People trust what they can touch. Especially, I want to be able to pull the physical plug out of the wall. And again, physical security, in a lot of cases, can dominate or be better than the so-called e-security, or electronic security. So, these are the things that, we really need to be very much aware of. Don't blindly follow jumping into everything AI. I remember a couple of years back, when cloud first started, and there was a CIO or a CEO of a particular company said, we need to be in the cloud. And everyone said, well, why? He said, I don't know, but everyone's doing everything in the cloud. Again, look at what problem you're trying to solve. Look at maybe what opportunity there is for efficiency or opportunity for a new business. Or honestly, to do different. I mean, we say differently, but do different. That's a little subtlety. Differently is a comparison or augmenting or improving on before. Different is looking at blue ocean strategy. Great book, great writers. And if people can really take a look at that matrix of, what do I stop doing that the market really is used to getting? What do I reduce that the market is used to getting? What do I increase beyond what the market expects? And then what do I go create? And that framework that the Blue Ocean authors created certainly gives people pause to sit back, look at the big picture, and say, how do I evolve, or better still, how do I transform, or even better still, how do I create a new way for better competitive advantage in the market?
And how to measure success also. It's going to change.
Measurement is always is going to be there, but make sure you're measuring the right things.
Yeah.
All too often, both in especially on the marketing side, we get caught up on what men call vanity metrics. A vanity metric may be, suddenly we've increased our followers by 200% on social media.
Yeah. That's possible with a little.
That's possible with some tuning and some news, or, some pictures of something.
Even like 5 followers overnight. It doesn't help really grow your community. I mean,
It can grow the community, but it really doesn't grow the impact. Again, old phrases, quality over quantity. But again, perception versus reality. If I've suddenly got 1 million followers, that begets actually increasing more followers because they want to know why 1 million people are following me. I don't have 1 million followers, I confess, but this is, again, the fear of missing out, as we've heard a lot from many businesses looking at, talking, implementing AI, that FOMO, the fear of missing out, because they hear everyone talking about it. Some people are doing it, some people are doing it wrong. But at the end of the day, you've got to look at, again, be careful what you jump into. Again, that crawl, walk, run approach.
you touched on the terminology that I was trying to find it. I'm also used to refer. It's a fear factor in the leadership right now. And F is FOMO, really, like a fear of missing out. And then E is education gap, A is alignment gap, and R is roadmap void. These four, at least one of this is missing right now. And Book is actually overcoming this fear with a better planning strategy or whatever. They are actually moving very fast.
It's back to the human factor. AI or artificial intelligence is one thing. Human intelligence, human understanding, human, receiving information as a human. How do I interpret? And then how do I act? If you look at a majority of businesses, they're either developing a service, they're delivering a product, and they're delivering to a customer, whether it be a B2B customer or a B2C customer, or, you're piping electricity into your home. We're a customer of that. We all experience things very, very differently. So in any kind of AI implementation, usage, augmentation, or creation, we need to always consider the human beings. And so we're talking about process before, really about how do I improve the workflow. But again, what is the end state? The end state of maybe a tech B2B company, I want them to buy my product. Okay, that's the one end state. But then how do I grow that customer? How do I keep that customer happy? How do I really improve on CX or customer experience? And that customer experience is not just support. It's about how I interact with them, how I nurture with them, how I support them. When things go bad, how quickly we address. This is that 360 customer interaction and customer experience that you should get.
And there are a lot of touch points passive in the customer journey.
Very much that effect. If I'm an age user of a particular credit card and there's a discrepancy on my bill, if I'm able to automate that and get it addressed, or better still, can I easily get hold of a human being that speaks my language in the appropriate language, in whichever language I'm speaking, does it with a nice attitude, that human interaction. I was on a call the other day where I was, checking on a medical bill, and the person I was interacting with was on chat. And the way that this individual was interacting with me on chat, how's your day going? And it was while they were looking some things up. And the interaction of that person's personality came across. Now, they may call me up and say, hey, we're talking to an AI bot. However, I don't think so, because this person actually went above and beyond and I had a good experience, and I actually kind of came away smiling, even though I still had to pay the bill. Uh, it's that human engagement, that emotional intelligence, along with the so-called IQ, the left side brain, as well as AI helping us. The emotional engagement of a human to human, I don't think can ever be replaced.
From the leadership side, right now, I mean, the roles in the top are, or in other words, the departments are no longer like silos. With for AI, like the whole ecosystem is shifting. All roles are overlapping with each other. Where do you think like roles are settling down in next 2 to 5 years? And like CROs who are highly going by numbers and profit and loss and spend and all this. And marketing is all about generating leads and keep building a pipeline and branding.
I think there's two sides to this, a double-edged sword, or two sides of the coin. I was on a call the other day, or actually being interviewed, and one of these people said, I think product marketing or marketing as a whole goes away, because product stuff will be in the hands of engineers, because the engineers will be able to create the value proposition using AI tools. And I think they said it, tongue in cheek, to kind of get a situation. I think there are things in flux right now. Right now I'm looking at ways of how do I improve, let's call it the marketing stack, or rather I would prefer to call it the sales and marketing stack, or go to market. And how do these tools interoperate with each other so information is flowing between them, with a natural language or even a voice interface into them. All too often for decades, we've dealt with APIs, software development kits. Are we compatible between these two systems, applications, or software? Do we have the rights? Is it all mapping? It was very much a programmatic approach. With industry standards, the flow of information is better. The one thing that keeps me awake at night, not every night, but really is how people, bad actors, utilize AI for bad things, to give false narratives, to create, or attack, systems and insights. Because one of the things we've known about, as soon as we went online with the internet and everything, it gave birth to a whole security business because of bad actors.
Every computer is connected now.
We're all connected. What's the safest computer? One that's not connected. So, you're going to see suddenly a rise in risk avoidance, and reducing risk, cyber resiliency. There was an article just yesterday about the birth of data infrastructure, software systems, solutions, and networking needs to dramatically improve. And it is the bedrock of data, but it needs to have resiliency, to bad actors. And AI can discover ways to get in, or ways to manipulate beyond what a bad actor's brain can come up with.
Yeah, it has to be predictable because bad actors are also moving even faster than the good actors can.
Because that's their mission. So are we going to see a rise in ransomware? Possibly. Are we going to see a rise of attacks? The one that is, one area that is more fearful is the attack you didn't see, meaning providing you information that you think is real. You're making decisions on that information, and then you have a bad consequence because of bad data or bad information flowing in. Back to garbage in, garbage out. This is bad data in could be catastrophic to a mission critical enterprise. So these are things we have to be wary of, and certainly, a lot of the security companies, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, you name it, that they need to keep up with things. and be the bleeding edge of protecting, validating, and certainly for every consumer. More and more are we now getting false emails. The amount of email texts or phone calls we get from a bot or a pretend person that's interacting with you to lure you in, to either interact, but mainly to do harm and steal your information, or better, even worse. Again, with great power, what's the old saying? I think from one of the Marvel movies, with great power comes great responsibility. I think it was from Spider-Man, probably. But I mean, these are the things that we need to be aware of.
Referring back to that law firm data hallucination and with AI and the screwed up use case, and that was covered in the media, but it happens every day somewhere. Okay, we have been victim on such kind of hallucination and bad data decisions also time to time, and we fix those. From your expertise, Gary, what is a good data looks like? What is data quality in terms of different maturity levels, and how to measure data quality?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There's a lot of software companies that have invested in data quality. And again, based on rules, what is the quality of the data? I think it is based on which applications, which business models. A lot of the data quality products for a long time are pretty focused on structured data. Structured data meaning databases. In a lot of cases, even all the things like their catalogs and this whole space that a lot of key software companies built their business around. The irony of it now is the volume and velocity of data. And actually, IAC used that term, or came up with the term of volume, variety, and velocity a number of years back, when they were talking about the third platform. It is exponentially growing, as we know. I don't want to state the obvious, but the volume of this data, from creating data from endpoints, whether it be an image file, a video, or whether it be a document or so forth, they're all coming in a variety of forms because they're being presented in different. And one of the key challenges is, do I understand that data? All too often, people, the organizations will look at just the metadata, the data about the data in terms. And really, when you look at it, you've got to look at the payload, or what some people call as blob. What's inside. If it's an email, then what's inside the attachment? If it's a Word file, then what are the words within that file? And AI is certainly helping us, peel the onion back, the so-called data layers, but also to try and interpret what is that really saying? Is this page of text here, the secret IP algorithms of our company, or is it, the latest football scores? How do I interpret this information? And any AI is certainly helping us with that. I think the companies that have certainly focused on data quality for organizations have been very specific to an application and data fire. You really need to analyze the life cycle of this data. Where is it being created? Who's it being used by? What is it feeding? And is it feeding, another application or a user to use that data to make other decisions? And this is the old bubbling up back to garbage in, garbage out. If you're fueling a lot of so-called irrelevant information, sometimes people refer to the word as rot or redundant, obsolete, and trivial. But again, that's subjective. I once spoke to a genomics company, and we're talking about data lifecycle and when do you delete your information? What's your policy of when you delete information? And they said never, because we never know when we're going to need that information to analyze and search from. I was talking to one of
It's the common problem.
very, very common problem.
Very common.
We're human pack rats at the end of the day. Don't delete it just in case. And that creates a cost issue. It impacts efficiency. and you don't know whether you've got the crown jewels or garbage. So again, understanding the data's state, what kind of data is it, when was it created, whom by, what was its life cycle, the information placement, where is it sitting, and who has access to it. And then the availability, back to not only who has access to it, but is it on a high available system, online all the time, fault tolerant, and protected. And then what people really don't talk about is, when do I delete? When do I kick the trash out? And back to the human factor, better to keep it just in case. Otherwise, I may be held accountable because I just threw away the crown jewels, or we really needed that. As an example, in my house, I'm pretty tidy, and that my wife would like to keep things, keep backup, or don't throw that away, right? Because we might need it one day. And I'm like, we don't need it. Let's just throw it out. And that there are pros and cons to both. And ironically, the day that I actually do need it, oops, I threw it out. These are the dilemmas that we have in terms of keeping information or keeping things.
And that adds on to data complexity as well.
Correct. Data bloatedness. We're bloating because we're keeping so much information. And again, back to an LLM working on data. If 80% of that data is irrelevant, redundant, or trivial, for that LLM to go, I may not understand. Should I delete it, or should I put it in a different location? Should I archive it? Should I put it in a different repository? So I'm only looking at the 20% relevant data. These are the kind of things that date back to lifecycle management, data lifecycle management, or dare I say, your coined term in the 90s of information lifecycle management. But there is a stack. It goes from, the lowest stack in terms of network and storage to, storage management, to data management, to information management, but ultimately to knowledge management. And how do I do that? And there's no one size fits all here. It's back to the workflow, the process, and understanding what you have, who has access to it, and how long to keep it.
And you mentioned knowledge management, knowledge about the data in terms of like what is stored where is important. Sometimes, as hello, we don't get rid of the data entirely. We protect it somewhere. We save it for future reference. And when people leave, the knowledge goes to nobody knows what's sitting in that box.
Yeah, and that's the biggest challenge. I would say when you look at storage management, the storage industry as a whole, it's pretty much been ignorant of the value of data.
Yes.
Their job traditionally has been to store, manage, protect, and deliver that information. I don't know what it is. It could be a database table, it could be a file, it could be a video, delivering back to the application or the user. That's the storage's job. But it's pretty naive of the sort of storage industry as a whole. If you knew about that data's value and knew it wasn't, of value, then maybe I should automatically tier it somewhere else, or a lower cost environment, so that the primary operational environment is more efficient. Or maybe I can make a conscious decision to delete it. That's why object storage has always been a great promise. I mean, object storage as an example with, complex metadata, the ability to actually have policies as part of the data, to say, what the policy on this piece of information is, 3-year life cycle. So it deletes itself after 3 years. This is the kind of embedded knowledge or embedded information within storage systems that needs to evolve.
Can you explain object storage for learners?
Sure. I mean, you look at the three main areas of storage: block storage, which is where you would put databases; file storage, which, as we all know, we've got our files on our laptop and so forth. Object is, there's both a protocol and it's a data type. So S3 from Amazon, for example, is a object storage protocol. And we can verify these as well later on. But the object part is the ability to have think of it as a very rich file, lots of metadata, additional data being added to the object, including things like policies. And then typically an object storage world, you would typically have 3 copies, all acting as redundant elements. So as opposed to just having one copy where there's a single point of failure, it could be deleted, I can have multiple copies of that. So side note, let's trust and verify that, because this is old knowledge that I need to gen up on again. It's been a while.
Sure. So in continuity with object storage, we were talking about where the data is stored, the knowledge goes, then people leave. And that's when the pining of those servers or data starts to happen and nobody really takes ownership of what to do with that. Just keep it, just in case. What is the way to identify those gaps? And what is the right time to get rid of those boxes who nobody knows what they do?
Going back, that's why you saw a rise. I think Gartner and IDC have both articulated the rise of the chief data officer in organizations. We've gone from the traditional CIO to CISO, or Chief Information Security Officer, as well as the Chief Data Officer. And depending on the organization, again, the Chief Data Officer of a major insurance company versus the Chief Data Officer of a hospital are going to have different, priorities. But ultimately, there needs to be built policies of data. Things, and again, there are legal requirements in different regulatory industries or regulated industries that tell you how long information has to be kept, or when information has to be removed.
But that's the minimum requirement.
That's
not the maximum.
Yeah, that's the minimum. And then suddenly now with regulatory things like CCPA, or the California Privacy Act, as well as Europe's GDPR, these policies are there for protecting consumers, but also it's really about providing access to the data and requesting removal of the data on demand from that particular end user. So one of the things that we noticed over the years, I've certainly noticed over the years, regulatory requirements force corporations to get their data act together. It's so easy to just keep things forever. Oh, storage is cheap, or guess what, I'll just tear it off, or don't worry about it. When, for example, in the broker-dealer or the financial stock trading markets, where, you had to journal any communication, between, consumer brokers and so forth. And there was a regulation, I think it was a NASD 3010 and SEC 17-84 and 3. This was very much about controlling email in a lot of cases. And that's certainly evolved, but it forces you to get your data act together to create as something as rudimentary as kid storage. Where am I putting things for when, for how long? Regulatory says, well, now copies need to be with a third party, offsite, or physically disconnected. So these things force us to get our data act together. Certainly, regulations continue, but again, not all industries take note of it or are required to. So again, good things come out of regulation to force people, which is a forcing function. But sometimes, and I've heard this through various conversations where people have said, well, I've now got plausible deniability because I've had someone come in, a third party, review, and then leave. So from a government perspective, hey, I did my due diligence, even though the problem still exists.
From privacy perspective, for marketing, it's more than important to manage data. But a lot of private personal information that marketing saves for people to personalize their experiences, the customer experience. When we talk about personalization, the customer data is definitely needed to know the intent and to deliver that level of experience. From GTM perspective, what is your experience about managing data and delivering that personalized experience?
We all want to need a message to us sent to us, not as too blank or a generic thing. So it's more than a name. The personalization of many factors to personalization from data. Uh, you know, where did you go to school? What did you buy at the grocery store? What are you buying online? Um, I think there's a very fine line between personalization and privacy, um, invasion of privacy, and to a point where it can become very annoying. I'll give you an example. You go onto Amazon and you're looking to buy, you know, um, a new couch. You do your research. You find a vendor that they're connected with. It could be a third party, it could be Amazon themselves, and you buy that new couch or whatever the particular product may be. You buy, you're done. You continue to get ads now.
Yeah,
And everywhere.
the couch is everywhere on
The couch is everywhere. It's like, no, I bought my couch. Stop bothering me, ecosystem. And it's not Amazon. It may be coming emails from other vendors and so forth. And no, stop. And so that's where it becomes, in my personal experience, a very annoying. Say in the enterprise, we need to be very diligent about how we evolve our customers. A customer has purchased a product. They don't want to be sold the product again. They want to be able to get the most out of that product. They want to hear about best practices. They may want to hear about things that can augment my product, and so forth. So again, back to a couch example, I bought a couch. Maybe I'm getting some ads now on throw pillows or blankets. Okay. That's okay, But again, that's very subjective. Am I going to get buyer's remorse because I bought the couch and now I saw all these other couches being advertised at a lower price? So I'm going to get a very different experience. But I think that one of the key things is making sure from an enterprise perspective that you're utilizing the information in a respectful way and more importantly, the relevant way. Understand that if a customer bought a product recently, don't be telling them about, a product that you just released 2 weeks later with no buyer's remorse. So why did I buy that version?
Yeah.
If it's a customer that is 3 years old, 5 years old, they've got an older version of product X or Y, I could be pitching to them or giving them advice on augmenting that environment, or it can be pitching them the new revolution or the new version or the new service that could be offered. That helps with upgrades, helps certainly with updates, and ensures loyalty. And again, there's a fine line. Unfortunately, in a lot of the organizations, they've got their database, it's their customer database, and they're shooting off messages. This communication that goes out via email and social and video and launches and invites to VIP events, people need to look at the customer.
Yeah. So for that very reason, like customer 360-degree view is very important in your data, like customer profiling and segmentation, and then the scoring system, like and relevancy of offering.
You said a key word there, which was the scoring system. And I believe certainly when we're looking at marketing automation, CRM, with, you using, Salesforce from that side of things, or, um, marketing automation tools like Marketo or HubSpot, they've all got this very valuable information. But for many years, they've been sort of siloed or disconnected. I was in one company where they had multiple instances of Salesforce, and because of the way they were mapped out, fields were named differently, and then integrating them or consolidating them was going to cost, millions to actually to kind of fix this.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think are very different these days is a lot of the applications that are being built, especially AI ready or AI adapted, are a little bit more interoperable with each other. If I look at a talk that I was listening to the other day, met some great people at the CMO Alliance, they were going through their stack in marketing automation. There's a great tool that sales development reps, ISRs, SDRs use, like called Gone. Gone's been around for a while, and I was at one young company I was with, we used it. It was great because you were doing auto dialing, which was basic stuff, but then recording the calls, transcribing the calls, and then using AI to analyze the calls to say, right, well, we had a call with this particular customer. Did their voice go up or down? Did the end result of the conversation move to a next step? Now compare that, record that with other things, and then guide the other SDRs to learn from the SDR that's winning. What were the phrases that made the conversation suddenly go better? What were the phrases or keywords that made the conversation go positive? So sentiments, yeah. But now I'm connecting that back with, it's interconnected with my Salesforce, it's interconnected with my marketing automation. AI can now just say, right, give me a summary of when we talk to new customers, and saying it in this way, what are the things that really resonate with them in a conversation we have with them face to face? And what are the things that made them be more likely to be a customer? And throw that out there. And then AI is going to come back and it's going to pull from all of these different data sources, and it's going to give you an analysis, a point of view. Again, it may or may not be right, so trust but verify. But there are data points there, likely with percentages, of why this happens. And again, back to our conversation where we were talking about kids earlier, 3-year-olds always asking, why, Dad, why? Well, it's because of this. Why? Why is the sky blue? Why? And I think we almost as adults need to adopt a 3-year-old's perspective and ask why.
Why? 5 whys.
Keep asking why. And so you have maybe a self-conscious due diligence on the information that you're receiving. But again, don't just get the report. Don't just say, oh, that's interesting. What are you going to do different? How are you going to communicate that onward? How are you going to change the workflow? How are you going to improve the ultimate customer experience? And how are you going to measure it? All too often, I've sat through so many board meetings and executive staff meetings where numbers are being presented. The sales are up, the sales are down. The marketing numbers are up here and they're down here. Everyone sits back, goes, good job, nice presentation.
But does it help in the bottom line?
Did it help the bottom line? Did it improve customer experience? But more importantly, what are our learnings from this data? And what are the actions that we're going to take to do better, to do different? So we're constantly improving. Again, versus just the silos of functional groups presenting their metrics or their progress against objectives. If numbers are coming in, if the numbers are going great, good. Everyone's and smile. Why? What are we doing?
The correlation of activities and results.
And less conversations, or rather, it's not common to have a good boardroom discussion to say, why are we doing great? How do we pile onto that? How do we predict that one day it's going to drop? And what are we going to do different? Are we on a ramp-up curve because of X? But guess what? We got to be ready with the next Y definition to go to the next chapter.
I agree with that. It's just not about metrics. It's about insights that you always need to have because of in the end of your explanation.
Right. So earlier we were talking about data management, information management, and knowledge management. What we're describing now is really about knowledge management or knowledge. But knowledge is only good unless you start taking, and, gaining the information and gaining the knowledge is great, but take action.
Yeah.
Do something with that data, that information, and that knowledge to whatever it may be. Reduce costs, reduce risk, improve customer value, increase sales, train our people differently. But there's a human factor into this, which is when things aren't going bad, that's when the analysis happens. I argue that you should be analyzing even more so and taking action when things are going great.
Learn from it and repeat that.
Rinse and repeat, but also sometimes certain tactics or strategies have a life cycle to them. Going out and saying we're the best at X and we're better than this person, this solution will go so far and we'll have a runway. But then what's the next? And what's the next? And again, one size doesn't fit all. I can run and talk about data resiliency of a storage platform till the cows come up, but it's core. Now, does that become table stakes? Yes. Is it your differentiation? Yes. But also, what's the additional value? I want to provide, what's the old saying? I want to be able to provide not only pain medication, I also want to provide vitamins. And again, people always gravitate to, solve the problem first.
Yeah.
But once my problem's solved and I'm comfortable and I'm trusted in that solution, what about next? What about the additional value? How can I sugarcoat this? How can I really, gain value? And more importantly, how does the vendor, raise the customer experience and value and not want to change? Because there's a life cycle of products, as we know. And when you get to an end of a life cycle of a particular product or service, how you get them to stay with you? How do you get them to upgrade or migrate to the new latest versions? And why do we want to do that? Well, as a vendor, we said we want, the income, but at the same time, we want the customer retention. And we want to keep the customers happy. No end of analysts have reported the cost of acquisition, is, many times that of a customer retention. So protect and grow your customers.
I have studied that in McKinsey's report.
Yeah.
It's 80% cost of acquiring new customer compared to 20% for retention.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
But unfortunately, it's the metrics are always about the new sale
for the new sale.
and upgrades and updates and service contracts is less important. And the mindset needs to change. If suddenly a large percentage of your business is coming from your install base, then make sure there's a decent percentage of your business, your marketing dollars, your sales focus is on nurturing and growing versus chasing the 20% at 80% of the cost.
I'll come back to your e-commerce example about personalization and data. Personalization for B2C is much easier because you know individual directly, but you coming from B2B arena as well, and that's complex. It's a village that you have to convince for selling to make them make a purchase decision. How do you see the strategy is different in B2B versus B2C? Not talking about data at this point, but like from go-to-market perspective, what are those key values? Because there are conversations I have in discussions with people, leaders that like it's no more B2B versus B2C, it's B2H, business to human, which is a good deal. I mean, B2B is also like set of humans that are making decisions. But how do you see like B2B is shaping up lately?
My personal perspective and experience has been that the old phrase of horses for courses. I don't know if it's an English phrase or an American phrase, but you're using the right message and the right engagement with the right audience. So, for example, if I'm looking at what is the problem at hand? I'm trying to sell, of late what I've been focused on is certainly a storage, a high performance storage system. What problems is it solving? And what are the problems at different levels within the hierarchy? If I look at the person I am who's going to use it, that would be the storage administrator, the storage architect. The person who's going to be suddenly worried about the budgets and managing it maybe be the VP of IT, the CIO. Yeah, and now I'm into the C-suite, where if the CEO is looking at storage infrastructure, he's an insurance company, he or she is not going to be sitting there worrying about storage. They're concerned about compliance, their continuity, cost. These happen to be C's, funny enough. Cost, complexity, like I said, compliance, and you're keeping the business running. So that's what's on their top of mind. Now, if you can join the dots, and I think Steve Jobs said this about joining the dots from the people that are making purchase decisions, the CFO and the CEO are suddenly going to be making decisions on budget to acquire. Now, if they can actually grok the connection between their business priorities and how this storage system or individual product is tied to their business goals, the sale will go a lot quicker. So when I look at the triangle of volume of influencers, purchasers, decision makers, and people with key responsibility, they've all got different trigger points, things that they care about. And if your message and story can tie into each of these, now you're talking about a strategic conversation, valuable up and down the food chain, versus trying to sell speeds and feeds within an individual that still needs to go back up the food chain to get the PO signed.
What I am thinking, what the perspective that I was thinking about, of course, personalization is all about right content to the right people at the right time. That's 100% correct. But the different roles, how do companies deliver that experience? Because when we do account-based marketing, we see account as one object, one entity. And if traffic is coming from that account, IP address, technically, we just show the next intent-based content to them to make that relevant. But what if the person coming this time is the first time visiting that property? So we are actually jumping that person ahead of the line and confusing it because they don't understand the awareness basis behind the line. So, this is tricky. And that's where the phonology of business to human makes more sense, that we have to have a hybrid experience basis within B2B also, like who is visiting. Okay. And how to identify them if they are not known already in our data?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of tools out there, some that and have direct experience with. The stats show that suddenly when someone is looking to acquire a technology, in some cases they may visit the company's website, but they're also doing a lot more research
On social media.
and than ever before.
Yes, there are a lot of tools right now.
The gravitas right now is towards going straight into ChatGPT, Claude, and others saying, hey, I'm looking for X
Customers are becoming educated right now.
compared to Y and give me a table. Now, they may naively take that as gospel and say, oh, this is my summary of my report, my situation analysis. I've got strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and I've got a comparison table. Great, this must be true because it's on the internet. I think we need to suddenly look at who the influencers are. I hear about ABM. We all talk about account-based marketing, but account-based marketing is only as good as account-based selling. There could be a major account manager who has a great relationship with, a Fortune 100 company, but if the influencers in that company are not nurtured, are not given the right level of information. For example, a TCO report will be great for maybe a VP of IT. And again, I'm generalizing in some of this, but a TCO report may be good for the CFO and good for the person who's writing the check of the particular department. Maybe not as important to maybe the administrator of that environment. Whereas customer success stories, video testimonials, best practices and workloads, and more importantly, the ecosystem of players, technologies, support infrastructure is more important to others within that food chain. So ZoomInfo, I think they were acquired by Target, I think, does a great job of being able to create and understand search topics. So they can say, I don't know, a particular company is searching, multiple people are from a particular company are doing discovery and search on a particular product, and can assemble those contacts of who is actually doing this research. Now, we're not mind readers. We need to know the account. We need to identify those 5, 10 people that are doing this research.
But
And then that is now your buying group or ecosystem.
yeah,
Now I need to make a conscious decision of how I'm going to communicate to those. Sounds very complex. However, this is where AI starts coming in to be able to automate that, to send the right message, the right content, to do a couple of things. Build awareness, depending on who they are. Ultimately, make sure that your product is being considered for their environment. If it's an install base, certainly ensuring that it builds preference or influence preference either through a prospect or a customer. So that's ACP, and then ultimately purchase.
and that's where your previous conversation about data governance and all those customer 360 lead profiling comes into mix as well. Like that is necessary right now for this buying group to target, and AI technologies is capable to make it possible.
And you got to keep your customer database healthy. We were talking about data hygiene and data lifecycle, but if your customer database, your prospect database, let's just say your database, it's got to be continually kept cleaned and adjusted and attributes. And that's why marketing operations is so paramount to the new dawn of marketing fueled and powered by AI.
Yeah, that's been a challenge for having data quality.
How many times in an organization is like, okay, we're taking the data, we're cleaning it, it'll be online. We're going to go through another data cleansing process, another day. But so rather than milestones, you got to have process and tools to ensure it's kept. There's no point. Let me build maybe a poor analogy here. There's no point in being able to eat bad food as a human and get big, bad cholesterol, bad heart, bad everything. And then once every 2 years, I'm going to go on a purge and I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to, be great. And then as soon as I'm healthy, boom, I'm back to eating badly and building up and getting unhealthy again.
Yeah.
Why do that? Why not stay healthy? It's always tough for us, even though with our diet, several of the temptations, but, do things in moderation. Keep a process of keeping healthy or working out on a regular basis, or splurge out on the cake now and again, but don't do it every day. The same thing with data. Keep it healthy. Be doing regular, more frequent analysis of the data, cleansing of the data, deleting, records that don't matter. There are tools out there that certainly help do that. Contact information with people leave companies, email addresses change, influences change. So how do you ensure that that contact is either removed or that it's being updated? If they move to another company, is also a customer or prospect, or if they now are irrelevant or retired, then remove them, because you're wasting money on your time and money focused on trying to nurture a contact there that was with X company but is now retired.
Yeah, because these customer leads databases are actually charged by number of profiles you have.
Correct. So you've got a lot of cost issues.
It's very important. You defined the term data anywhere. Is that something related to data cleanliness also? Can you describe data anywhere?
The reality is we know we've gone through a very cyclical change over the past probably 50 years, where we've gone from, centralized to decentralized to centralized to fragmented systems and data. Data is everywhere now. The birth of the smartphone probably, made that just go through the roof. Certainly cameras in phones. Again, camera technology, when it was just film and printed output, was very easy. It was in a book. It was inside a photo album. Now it's pervasive across the internet, video created, and so on. So data is highly distributed, but it's highly fragmented. In a B2B example, I may have my CRM system and I have my marketing automation system. Now, we all know that they do interconnect. Marketo talks to Salesforce. We've seen convergence where, companies like HubSpot, there is CRM and marketing automation tool, MAT and CRM are one, which helps with the database. But in a lot of cases, there's interoperability, and that needs to ensure that that is working correctly. And if there are two separate databases or systems, that there is one view into that data, one quality set of that data. If they become out of sync, there's a problem. Similarly, garbage in, garbage out, or nothing in, nothing out. One of the biggest challenges when I talk to heads of sales, ensuring salespeople are keeping the account up to date, making sure that, this customer is great. What applications do they have? Who are the people within the organization? When was the last time they were visited or the outage? And some of this is manual, but again, quality of what goes into a system is directly applicable to in terms of the insights that I'm getting out. As a marketing leader, you want to say, right, how many of our customers are in banking? And what applications are they using? Are they using a CRM system powered by Oracle? Are they got a custom application so I can remarket to them? Or better still, I can improve that customer success, their experience. And you go into a record and there's hardly any information there. Now, how do you solve this? Because of back to humans. So I need to continually feed that and augment that environment. But also then, when there are those little pieces of information from a face-to-face meeting, that they get entered in. One company I was at quite a few years back, the CEO of that company was acquired by another large company that I worked for. And he made it very simple. He told all the salespeople, if your Salesforce account and the accounts that you manage is not up to date, you're not getting paid.
That's a good one. I like that.
And it was somewhat, in the executive, were like, well, that's a bit of a threat, or we can't do that. It's like, no, this is your job.
Yeah.
You should be living inside Salesforce as a salesperson, and you should be feeding that machine and receiving from that machine. Let the back office of sales ops and marketing operations ensure that the data is cleansed and consistent. But at the same time, make sure that the salesperson who may be responsible for that account, that is a good reflection of that.
They take it as convenient matter, like, okay, when I have time to update, I do that only on the tool. I mean, that breaks the chain. And marketing cannot know the exact picture with that customer going on, and they run campaigns based on information available, which is updated.
Yeah, it's almost like doing blind marketing, the seeing what sticks. You'll see you want to say everything and have less targeting. I think we need to be as an industry a lot more personalized in B2B with regards to the engagement. So you get maximum ROI out of the marketing vehicle, be it an event, be it a reach out, and so forth. Otherwise, again, we're chasing our tail and we're inefficient and we're wasting money.
With this now, we're good with like data situation and technology. How CMO should approach the marketing today compared to 2 years ago and future in the 2 years?
Yeah, it's suddenly an evolution, if not revolution.
Yeah.
And I think gone are the days of we're going to go to a major trade show, we're going to get all the leads, and then we're going to go follow up on those leads. All too often, I think the biggest challenge for any marketing leader is that they're dealing with an organization their executive staff, their peers that all believe they're also marketing experts. AI also makes that a little bit more difficult too. Why is it taking you 2 weeks to get out a new data sheet on this product? I just did it in two minutes inside ChatGPT. So we're going to run into that. If not, we're already running into that. The other is there's probably more scrutiny in terms of the resources that are required. Do you need that many people in creative now? I can do it in ChatGPT. And again, what they don't know that goes into things. Legal side, production side, ensuring brand guidelines, and ensuring that it resonates. I think one of the things that a number of events I've been at recently with peers is they're in the same boat of learning. They all know there's big transformation going on with AI. As we've spoken about once before, there is a journey of understanding, implementing AI technologies into the marketing operation. We can, as if someone's a product manager, product marketing manager, marcom person, PR or AR person, we can all spend our days playing and testing, if you like, various tools. The real goal here is to look at gaps and where efficiencies can be built. I'm personally excited that now there's going to be less time having to do some of the mundane tasks, formatting documents. If I'm writing a competitive brief, I'm putting the knowledge and gaining different sources of information to create that competitive brief and letting a tool, in this case, an AI tool that's been fed with the company's template of layout, look, feel, and tone to go help create that for me. It gives marketeers the time, an ability to get out in front of real customers. Ask someone in product marketing or in even the creative team in a marketing organization, how many days a week or month are you in front of a customer? And it will be quite low. So getting in front of customers, interacting with humans is absolutely paramount. So, the marketing organizations are evolving. The marketing operations and analytics, I think, becomes, in my opinion, has always been a core difference to a great versus a good marketing organization.
Customers are very well educated right now before they even come to the reader's website.
If they ever go to the customer's website, which, ultimately they will, to see that, but that also does affect their decision criteria and their perception. I may do a lot of research on a particular vendor, it comes back glowing, but I go to the website and it's poor experience, that's going to give me a negative feel. So I think there are some fundamentals that are going to continue. Face-to-face engagements are great. VIP events, small seminars are absolutely paramount.
So your suggestion is like the time we are saving from operational activities with technology, we should spend it with customers. I mean, we should attribute some of that towards customer-facing activities.
The key thing in a B2B enterprise push, when you look at it, events, there are trade shows and there are events. Major trade shows, very expensive. Events can be anywhere from, let's just say it's a 20 to a 50-person event in a particular region. The gift that keeps on giving. Customer intimacy, customer understanding, and bringing those people in to do so. We also got to understand that customers are inundated with information just as we are. We are customers of other vendors. So again, making sure that things can be given in a concise form to build credibility, to ensure there's some kind of comparative understanding. But more importantly, it's compelling and inspires the customer both emotionally, their balance of their EQ and IQ, to kind of build preference for the engagement. I believe in terms of as we do marketing out to the tuned audiences based on a lot of information about them and tuning our messages, Then it's build more bite-sized pieces, 30-second videos, 20-minute webinars, not 1 hour. The attention span isn't there. The default meeting was always an hour. I think the default meeting now for a lot of calendars is now 30 minutes, if not 15, because there is so much going on. The automation of certain things and learnings are going to improve, but we need to be able to adjust and take action, and not continually second guessing, but refine and adjust, regularly, and not flip flop. So in terms of other, conversations with some of the leading CMOs, they understand the advantages of AI. But one of the things that I think in this group I was talking with, everyone agreed upon is at some point we're going to need to be hiring an individual in individual departments that spends their time researching, using, and testing AI tools or the AI platforms themselves, or Claude, ChatGPT, Log, or others, to improve understanding or improve productivity as well as quality. We're all too busy. Everyone's too busy. That was the common thing. Everyone's too busy to learn. Now, I'm always too busy to go to the gym. You make time.
It's all about priorities.
Priorities. But setting so many minutes or hours a day or a week to learn, but understand what you're trying to learn, and then how you're going to go do things differently. Comes back to our previous discussions about the human factor. We need to adjust. Just like as new tools came across, suddenly video conferencing happened. Remember? Zoom happened, and it was, expensive at one point. It became a lot cheaper. Suddenly COVID, and everyone was on Zoom. Everyone knew what Zoom was. Now it's standard operating procedure. You're going to do, you're not going to have a phone call. You're going to have a Teams call or a Zoom call.
Yeah.
These are common practice because it's not difficult and it's not cost prohibitive. And this really changes things of how we as humans adapt to these new technologies and utilize them appropriately.
So what are those marketing activities that businesses should do apart from webinars and events, like anything else?
There's many tactics, as we know, in marketing. I've now seen, and we've all seen, how TV advertising has now come down in cost, and different platforms being made available for doing TV advertising, so it's in your face.
Yes, connected TV.
Exactly. So these are now lower production costs and creativity, far more targeted to the individual. You and I, we work in B2B enterprise, but we also watch TV.
Yes.
You're also, now it's got targeted with things like on Facebook and others, or community platforms, because they sort of know who we are. So, I'm seeing, ads relevant to not only my personal life, but also my business life. So again, coming from different angles. So yes, I think there's a lot more change there in terms of the vehicles themselves. Certain industries will double down on certain large trade shows versus doing regional events. The face-to-face interactions are suddenly going to change, and also the experience of these online platforms. I've seen a growth or an introduction of new interactive tools. It's not just Zoom or LinkedIn Live or your homegrown webinar tool. A lot more interactive elements. We've seen through companies, with BrightTalk, as the example, or Zoom, and the ability to vote and get real online feedback. These are the things that people need to adjust in their presentation. Far better to watch a webinar where it's more interactive, or in a lot of cases, there's new insights coming from the audience back to the audience. So if as a webinar with a whole bunch of chief compliance officers, and the surveys are, the result of the survey, or rather the question that pops up through the webinar, is insightful to them to take a screenshot of or to download. Now they're getting a takeaway. They're not just sitting there watching and watching and fast forwarding. They're actually interacting. But then the survey in this case is giving them information. And you're going to see a lot more change in the online interactive webinar experience than you've seen today. I get bored if someone's presenting slides or one person's presenting, I start, switching off.
It should be interactive. Yeah.
To a point, and to making sure that the host is good. It's some back into the human factor. All too often, not all too often, but in some cases you'll get a host that is not interesting, doesn't keep the webinar moving forward, doesn't inject the right level of humor at the right particular time, doesn't cut off a speaker if they're going down a rack hole, which I often do. These are the things that make it engaging. Um, just like, we're talking today, people are going to find it interesting. It's going to be worth their time. So as long as the marketing leaders and functional deliverers and individual contributors are very much aware of who is receiving what we're creating, what experience do I want to leave them with, what action do I want them to take? Again, back to ROI.
Your perspective is, I agree with, like, it's not just the shift of technology and not just the marketing tactics, but also the way of thinking of marketing leaders to change as well. With this, like how to realign the team now with this new model, how to relook on those marketing activities and campaigns that we used to run, how to measure marketing success.
There's one element on that which I want to touch here, which is PLG or product-led growth. So, and obviously this is not for every single product, but when you look at a product that you're using online, it's bringing up the ability to upgrade or get to new functionality, or to be able to integrate third-party technologies into your product. Just the other day, I was using Otter, which is the transcribing software for meetings, and had good experience. And it's highlighting within the product integrations into Outlook and integrations into Slack. Now, no salesperson involved. It's product-led growth. The product is marketing itself. The product is improving retention and a better experience by making sure that the tool has been optimized correctly and creates a level of retention.
It's beyond product, actually, it's portfolio now. It become ecosystem.
It's an ecosystem with those third parties as well. And again, who now owns the customer? But it comes back to that experience. Now I have this tool, I was using, I had to turn it on or off to record a call. Well, now it's automatically turning on when I'm inside a video conferencing, or it's automatically adding itself to my favorite mail application. This goes to improving the experience. And so never underestimate the product-like growth, which is part of almost like the marketing mix. It's a capability of the product, but also learnings to feed back into sales and marketing to understand the customer better. What are they using? What are they not using? And feed that back into product management and product development so they can evolve not only functionality, but the experience of how that person or persons is interoperating.
Beyond this portfolio related marketing, I also have seen that channels are changing, that trends are changing on customer perspective. For example, traditionally marketing has been seen as PR, communication, branding, and email campaigns, pretty much like heavily focused on these areas. And now with social media, where like the most marketing efforts are happening today, coming like at an industry level, at a global level, if we see social media has been number one marketing channel lately.
Yep.
For both B2B and B2C. How do you see that shift in like large scale organizations happening? And is social media just seen as another outbound communication channel, or I mean, like there is a gap to an improved area there?
2 points that you made there. Well, one is around, say, the head of marketing, whether it be VP or CMO. And the other then is specific on, a particular vehicle like social media. I think a lot of people, when social media came out, they were like, yeah, 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 this is low cost, high touch, but what's the ROI? You know, we got suddenly 60,000 followers. Great. What does that mean to the bottom line in the revenue? Did it influence them? Are they quality people? Or did I just, run an algorithm and pull in a whole bunch of people from different territories?
Students looking for job.
Exactly. So, and I've seen a lot of statistics as well when we've seen web statistics or social, that the actual followers and the people who visit the site weren't our sweet spot of customers. So we're attracting the wrong people. I think honestly, and I'm a little bit biased. As you know, my background for many years has been product management, working with engineering, building products. And then I moved over into, being responsible for the whole ecosystem. And when you do a young company or a startup, you have to know all the different pieces. And in some cases, you're conversing with the agent, PR agency, and you're doing things very, very fast versus just talking to a PR director and having them do it in a larger team. So you really need to understand and what's going on. I think what you're right. When people looked at a head of marketing, they think brand and leads. The blended demand generation. I believe that the evolving CMO and heads of marketing are true go-to-market business leaders. They need to know the product well so they can talk to customers, to partners, to the ecosystem, not only about the product but the company and where we're going to do things. There's a lot of certainly marketing leadership that has come up through the marketing communications and PR side, and then obviously doing various demand gen. It's more than that. It's looking at the entire customer experience, understanding support, customer retention, support issues, marketing to that install base, and understanding the issues so they can guide the functional groups to reach out to the other functional groups in the organization for that end-to-end customer experience. So I guess in short, what I'm saying is the CMO 2.0, 3.0, however you want to call it, really needs to be a little more tech savvy, a little bit more product savvy. And at the end of the day, it comes back down to what is the primary goal of market? They need to inform, they need to influence, but more importantly, they need to inspire. And that goes internally too. All too often, many companies forget to inspire internally so people actually believe.
What's your take about CMO's personal branding? I started doing this podcast about a year ago. And since I'm from marketing, so I have a network of marketing eatery. Okay, I reached out, and many of them agreed to do it with me because of my personal reputation and connections with them to start with. But now I'm approaching more CMOs and senior marketing leaders who I don't even know. Okay, but I show them the process I do that. Some of them, surprisingly, they are okay to talk to me, but off camera. I mean, they don't want to get into recorded conversation, which makes me surprised. I mean, it's just their personal conversations, personal opinions that I would like to know. I mean, it's nothing like they're representing their brands. They're representing themselves, their own opinions and thoughts, like we are talking. But CMOs and head of marketing leaders are like hesitating.
I guess that comes down to personality. If I look at one was CMO or SVP of marketing I was working for, he was very sort of humble. I would say humble, but a bit more reserved. On camera came across very articulate and personable, but really didn't like being in front of the camera.
But it matches personal brand, right? Like if they come in front of camera, I mean, they go conferences, they do customer facing, they do keynotes, uh, and some of them don't actually
Mm.
do any of these just because of the same reason, being hesitant?
I think it comes down to, well, the personality aspect. I think, and again, the perception of marketing in an organization. Is that marketing leader a visionary? Are they a personality?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we do experiments in business. We do with content. We do with technology. Or experimentation has been a term lately. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a personal experiment too.
Yeah, I think where I've seen it go wrong is when the head of marketing would be in an interview or a camera, and then they were asked for a market perspective or a technology perspective or and more importantly, the customer perspective. And it came across as quite thin, um, not very credible. Now, when a marketing leader says, I know the customers, I know the markets, I know my products or my offering that we're talking about, and I can actually share why us as the company, because they're a company spokesperson, so they need to talk about the company. They need to talk about the company's offerings and why we're different. And if they can do that in in an articulate form, with confidence, with personality, then their personal brand will inspire others. Their personal brand will give confidence to buyers
Yeah.
that if I'm a buyer, or in some cases, I'm a customer of that company, and I listen to the chief marketing officer or head of marketing, and they're giving examples of what's going on in the market, why people are buying, what problems are they having, and they're maybe talking about customers, and they're also then talking about the company itself. Um, that's going to build credibility. Now, in saying that, the CEO of the company should also be able to communicate those same points, a market view, and so on. There are CEOs in larger companies where are great talking about financials, the trajectory, and so forth. Great CEOs, amazing CEOs, would tie back to a customer and a customer story, and more importantly, the impact, the before, the after, and why the audience should believe that person and believe, therefore, in the companies.
Yeah, there is a study also I come across saying that many B2B customers these days are looking for CEO's personal brand and influence also in the industry. Like if they have following, they trust those CEOs over other CEOs who don't have any presence in the community.
Now, you have to be careful. There's a balance. There's been various leaders, GMs, CEOs, CMOs, etc., who are on the road, on videos, doing interviews and so forth. But you also have to pay attention to what's going on at home, the operations, the motivation, inspiring, accountability with your team, making sure that you're not out on the road doing great keynotes while the house is in disarray. So it's a bit of a balance. If you can, and in my opinion, a CEO and a CMO, and even in some cases a CRO in some companies, people want leadership. People want to believe on the mission that they're on. They're on a boat. They're maybe rowing because they're in a functional area, be it engineering or marketing or support or whatever, but they want to believe.
Is it not a point of failure? Like if leaders has to be in person, present with teams, it cannot really work on the company growth.
I believe it's always a matter of balance.
Yeah.
You've got great CEOs in companies who are very operational, very driven, but not a lot of people publicly know that. Their next level down are maybe their voice, their inspiration. Suddenly you've got some CEOs of large companies where English isn't their first language, and they're not able to communicate. So they do rely on other people from that perspective. I think that one of the biggest challenges in many, many companies is they lose sight on the why, the belief. I've seen time and time again as frequent as quarters, but if not yearly, where the so-called vision changes. The strategies therefore have to change. The cascading effect of flip-flopping on strategies, or having a vision that suddenly becomes disconnected, it's like a house of cards that comes tumbling down. In an ideal world, a true vision that inspires the market, the employees, of what we're trying to do as a company matters. But that vision, as we know, is just a dream. And I think many other philosophers have probably said this, but it's just a dream without a strategy or strategies to actually execute on that. But then that strategy is useless unless you've got execution. It just becomes a nice story. How many times, as in a company, have you gone with a product strategy or a go-to-market strategy, and you convince all the analysts, you convince all the media, you get the great coverage, but then you fail to execute. Yeah. And now everything that you told them loses its credibility. Mm-hmm. You come out with another strategy a year later or 2 years later. You back to the same audience. Now they are a participating skeptic. So one of the key things is to make sure you're going to develop a solid vision. Don't make it all lofty and warm and fuzzy, but make it something that touches heart and mind. Make it sure someone believes you can believe in that your strategy and strategies evolve, but don't flip-flop, that you then have the actions and execution and timing to deliver on those strategies and constantly measuring those metrics and then showing the impact of that. And that impact then comes full circle to fuel the belief in the vision.
So it's inside-outside balance.
It's inside-outside balance of an executive speaker. But again, when we start looking at that personal brand, I think as leaders, managers, we all have the duty to inspire our peers, as well as inspire our customers and partners, knowing that people have different triggers, clearly. When companies break these dots or break this cycle and constantly are changing strategy or coming up with a nebulous vision, we want to be number one in something nebulous, or can't be measured, people lose faith. That affects their behavior at work, affects their desire to be at work because they don't feel connected. And when they have doubt, soon fear and uncertainty starts to creep, and you'll either lose the employee, or worse still, their productivity is at 10%.
Yeah, goals have to be measurable and realistic.
It comes back down to building a great company and building the right environment that people want to love. They love coming to work. They love what they're working on. And all too often, there are examples of people who have shared with me that, love the people, but, the environment is hostile, or, great environment, or a bad environment, great products. It's always trying to work on some of that balance. And it's the responsibility of the executive leaders to ensure that the culture is felt. Yeah. It's okay to turn around and say, oh, we have a company culture problem. It's a very generic statement. You need to be able to build believers in terms of the vision, mission, strategies, and the people don't question them. They go, yeah, I get it. I feel it. I believe that vision that we set out in maybe 10 years out, but I understand the strategies that you're employing. You're not flip-flopping. You're going to execute those. You're not going to get bored of them because they didn't work in 2 weeks. And you're going to come full circle. That creates believers. And when you have believers in a company, you have a powerful force that the competition will have a really hard time combating.
Yeah. I saw a post yesterday on LinkedIn by a friend of mine and a professional firm colleague as well. By the way, his name is Rohit, just to give credit. He posted quite well, like traditionally all these CROs, CMOs, CILOs had their own lanes to go. I mean, they have boundaries and they just measure the success based on their own metrics. But now those roles are started overlapping and the goals are shared too.
Where they can be shared, there's a common goal. Again, everyone says we want to sell more product. Sales job. No. Sell more product. It's also marketing's job, support's job, services, all of these aspects.
But now marketing and sales are so closely connected, they cannot even work without each other.
And they need to have respect. Unfortunately, the human factor comes in, the bad human factor, which is if someone is territorial, if someone likes to point the finger at others.
That has to change too. How is that changing?
It's always been a common thread in human existence it's back down to, I think, integrity and accountability. These are kind of core values that you need to instill in others. That in a meeting, people are afraid to speak up because of bad consequences. People need to be able to speak up. Be aware of the squeaky wheel in the room. There's always one guy or gal who just likes to dominate the conversation and then no one wants to talk. But people need to be able to be comfortable. They can share ideas and share observations on how to improve. And when they do talk, that they are trying to help and are perceived as trying to help versus grandstanding. But again, part of this is into the dynamics of individuals. I mean, we don't want everyone to be a robot. Again, I look at it sometimes as the CEO of a company needs to be very in tune with the culture, the dynamics, and I'll say it, the feelings of their employees, because then they'll get a better pulse of how the company is operating and what's making it successful. And more importantly, to identify the hotspots, the things aren't working. Don't assign blame, but figure out how to fix it. And unfortunately, there are some bad actors, as we all know. We all work for great companies and bad bosses, and great bosses and bad companies. When you get the both marrying up, it's awesome. But leading by example is very much key. So, I mean,
You have been in boardrooms, and we also have witnessed in our careers that internal surveys are done to listen voice of employees, like what they feel, their growth, and like anything, or the different areas that are surveyed typically to identify the culture and the pain points. How seriously it's taken. Typically, we also see it as an HR goal to run a survey, and from compliance perspective, at times some companies have to do, they must do an yearly survey. But how seriously it's seen, because does it leave any impact after the surveys are received? I mean, what is your experience about those?
my experience, both in terms of completing the surveys as well as then reviewing the survey data. Problem one, survey is not frequent enough and too long. So you do the yearly customer, internal survey for employee sentiment. Company's doing well and hiring, the sentiments may be on the up. Company's doing poor, or there's been recent layoffs, sentiment's going to be down. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to get the results that I expected. My advice for surveys would be to do them quarterly, to do them around specific areas, be they care and attention to the employee or the business or in a particular area. Pick one. And then to make sure that they're done very quickly, that analyze very quickly. And I'm talking only a few weeks. Well, too often the survey comes out, people complete it, they've forgotten about it. 2-3 months later, the results come back. Then they go back to the manager. The manager then has to schedule some kind of meeting with his or her team, and they share that. And everyone goes, yeah, we do that. So now that survey did damage because it was a heavy task for the employee. I was getting beat up by my manager and the VP and so forth to complete them. We finally completed them. We all waved, oh, we got 95 or 100% completion. And then we go quiet. Second thing that happens is the results get communicated out and they're not in context or relevant to the audience. Isn't relatable to me, to my department, to me individually, to my teammates. So if you can come out with more regular, small, 10 minutes to fill out, for example, but then very quick communication back to everybody. And what have we observed? What have we heard? What is fact versus truth? And what are our 3 items that we're going to go tackle in what period? And then an ongoing par on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis where there's all hands of company survey slide. Voice of the employee, call it. VOE. Voice of the employee. Here's what you're telling us. Here's what we've identified. Here's what we've done. And here's what we're about to do. What's changed. So then that creates a cadence of listening, understanding, and taking action.
So closing the loop is important.
It's a closed loop thing. What are we doing wrong? It's done yearly. It's too long to fill out. It's too much information. And there's not quick enough response time to communicating the results. And no action is being perceived as being taken. It's all done at a higher level or behind closed doors. People want transparency and they want to see that their voice is being heard through action, not through talk.
Do you see priority in leadership to interpret those surveys seriously?
Unless they're measured on them. No. So for example, if a manager or a VP or a C-level person is, got a department and they got their survey, are they being held accountable to responding and to building an action plan and having the bandwidth to actually do that and the resources to do that? For example, there may be a department that has a lot of turnover. There are metrics that are showing that. There may be some key elements to that are a factor, maybe bad systems, old systems. And that's the cause of the frustration. Well, unless that person is given the budget to transform that element, to fix the root cause of the complaints or the dissatisfaction, then, it's not fair.
So the accountability is only about completing the surveys.
That generally for the individual, for the employee, has been, oh, you must fill this in. And everyone forgets it. Back to what I said, smaller, more often, transparency of action, and an updates of the action. And keep the list. Oh, these were the 10 things that we identified. Too many. 3. 3 people can remember. 3 is manageable. And note that these 3 things, strategies, actions, tasks, in groups, be careful of depths because you might come up with 3, but then you got in layers. Oh, then there's 5 things we're going to do for this one and then 18 things we'll do with this one. It's too much. Plus, it's in addition to people's day job.
Yeah.
So again, do you build dedicated resources to go focus on this? Not in HR, but in terms of operationally to make these things change.
Yes, I mean, it's such a useful information just firsthand, straight from your staff.
What's the old saying? Be careful what you wish for because you may just get it. Be careful what you ask because you may get a response that you don't like. And if you don't like the response, for example, I don't like blah, 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 because the product strategy is not clear, then don't take it personally. Yeah. Someone is saying the strategy is not clear. So get clarity of why the strategy or strategies are not clear and go fix it.
Marketing team 2.0, what changes you see?
Marketing team 2.0, I think we never have enough time in the day to get certain things done. I think AI is going to help alleviate some of the so-called grunt work. Technical people or technical marketing having to be pseudo designers and create a PowerPoint. AI is going to help level that playing field. We also have to be very careful of any content that we output that doesn't become same, because this competitor or these people are pushing things out. I think one of the things we need to look at is ensure that there is someone dedicated. Maybe it's a revolving role, or a dedicated role where someone jumps into it and then jumps out of it, gets back to something else, to constantly understand the changes and tools that are coming out with AI. More what I can do in ChatGPT and Claude, more agents I could create. Maybe they're dedicated to creating certain agents that are commonly used by the marketing team to ensure consistency, to ensure quality, um, and connectedness of various content. So I think, you're probably going to need to look at hiring a dedicated person or having the ability and flexibility in your organizations to continually be explored.
Who's AI savvy?
Becomes more AI savvy, yes, but then can educate their peers within within a particular department. Say it's creative. Someone in the creative team is constantly looking at new AI tools, look at ways to automate things or improve things. And then when they come back with various recommendations that they're demoing it, they're doing a pilot, and that they're actually then looking to see how it could be implemented. But because AI is the gift that keeps on giving in some cases, today's solution implemented and learned by human could be out of date in a month or a year. So I think from a marketing perspective, whether you're looking at competitive analysis, whether you're looking at product marketing, technical marketing, events, and so forth, each of these are affected by AI and different methods. I don't think you need one in every single department, but certainly marketing operations, I think the continual improvements in automation, workflow, and insights, that's an area that needs to be really beefed up. It's the core, I would say, engine or a marketing department now in terms of intelligence and automation. All too often, oh, we got one person managing Markel. Oh, we got one person doing this.
Yeah.
No, there needs to be, you know, intelligence built up within that. It's a science as well as in some cases an art. If I'm looking at just product marketing and solutions marketing, yes, there should be someone dedicated in that group to thinking about this stuff and how to automate that. If you don't, then you're going to get fragmented learning. You're not going to be on the bleeding edge, or rather the leading and utilizing and operationalizing and improving productivity within your marketing organization. And then you're going to have different levels of quality. There may be someone who's very AI savvy, cranking out content and checking and balancing and very productive. Whereas another, say, product marketing person may not be savvy, still, doing things the old way.
There is imbalance.
Could be an imbalance. This person could be very smart, knows the products better, knows the market better, but this person is cranking it out. There could be a third person cranking out content, not checking anything, but volume is king. No, quality is king. So I think in terms of content lifecycle management, again, some people say content marketing, but everyone is generating content.
Yeah.
But surely in terms of what piece of content is engaging which audience, again, back to personas, it's not just the enterprise or CIO, but the types of personas within industry, what's affecting them, what can inspire them and inform them and influence them. That content and life cycle of content needs to be managed. Also, often that's been very difficult in the past. I think with AI now that can become more informed and truly data driven, if you like, in terms of how to implement things. Other parts of marketing organization involvement, I think certainly from the digital marketing side of things, the webinar frequency, the newsreels, the thought leadership, all too often I've seen these be very spotty or fragmented, not interconnected. Something as basic as a social media post that's connected to a blog, and the blog is referencing a video, and the video that's referencing that. Exactly, the content mesh, that they all feed and help each other.
That's what AI understands. Generated chats.
Correct. But again, If I'm a point of entry through an Instagram video that I happen to be following a corporation, how does that tie back to influence me? I'd like to see ABM not stand alone. It needs to be ABM and ABS, account-based selling, account-based marketing. If I'm going to be marketing to different personas inside a particular account, then my sales team better be talking to those individuals in that account in that same narrative. If they're talking about X and I'm talking about Y, they're not coming together. And then maybe another area which is a little contentious, depending on which company you're at, is sales plays. Why arm a sales force or team salespeople to go focus on a play, a way of selling, a value proposition, a differentiation, a promo, if at the same time the air cover is not there to create awareness and consideration and preference and demand for that same topic or subject? All too often, I'm selling this way, here's my sales plan, I'm going to promote product or I'm going to promote, data resiliency. And over here, I'm talking about compliance. Hang on, they need to marry. And it needs to be joint ownership. Sales plays, yes, it's a sales play. Sales should be playing with it. But if they're not part of the creation and a part of the ownership, they're not going to want to adopt it. More importantly, it's the accountability of sales leaders to ensure the plays, tactics are utilized and measured. Can't be marketing. They don't know the salespeople. But the CSO, the CMO need to join in on these things.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much for your insights. It's a great conversation.
We'll come up with some others.
And that's a wrap on this episode. As I look back over our journey so far, I'm struck by something far more significant than our metrics. I'm struck by the caliber of the conversations we have built together. To you, our viewers, thank you. Your time is the most valuable asset you own, and the fact that you choose to spend it here. I do not take it lightly, and I do everything possible in my control to create the value content for you. At this show, we are not interested in winning the race for volume. We are committed to quality over quantity. Our goal is not to fill your feed, but to fuel your perspective. We are building a platform focused on big picture insights that actually move the needle in your life and your career. We are still in our early chapters, and I'm grateful to have you with us as we build something designed to last. Thank you for your trust and your continued support. If you value this perspective and our agenda, I invite you to subscribe and join us in building this mission. Thank you.